The hum of the photocopier stuttered like it needed a break more than the people using it. Overhead lights flickered in the same corner they'd flickered for 3 years, unfixed, unnoticed. The walls of Keenan and Blair Holdings, tucked on the 14th floor of a dated downtown Atlanta high-rise, were the dull color of ambition's aftermath, beige, fading, and cold. Desmond Arnett shuffled into the office at 8:57 a.m., 3 minutes ahead of his shift, same as always. The same crooked smile for the security guard at the front desk. The same faint nod to Karen in HR. The same elevator ride where nobody made eye contact. And the same lukewarm coffee from the shared kitchen with the stubborn stain on his tie he could never quite bleach out. He called it his war mark. Quietly, Desmond liked to believe it made him look seasoned, experienced, persistent. But nobody else saw it that way. "Hey Desmond," came a voice from across the office. It was Mallory, the newest intern, barely out of college and already making waves. "Just a heads up, Mr. Keenan's in a mood. Again." Desmond chuckled softly and nodded. "Thanks for the early warning." Mr. Miles Keenan, co-founder and managing partner of the firm, wasn't a man known for subtlety. A former Ivy League wrestler turned real estate mogul, he had a jaw like a stone sculpture and the kind of laugh that made people wince more than smile. He wasn't overtly cruel, but he believed deeply in the ladder, and how some folks were made to stay on the lower rungs. And to him, Desmond Arnett was one of those people. Desmond was 34, a black man from South Fulton, raised by a school librarian and a bus mechanic. He'd put himself through night school, earned a degree in finance from a small public college, and landed his first corporate job at Keenan and Blair thanks to a temp agency. 11 years later he was still there. Not promoted. Not fired. Just there. Desmond settled into his cubicle. He stared at the screensaver on his monitor, an image of a small, sleek cafe on a quiet street corner, with a chalkboard sign out front and hanging plants in the window. He designed the logo himself, mug and method. A coffee house. His coffee house. He'd dreamed of it since he was 25. Saved every penny. Bought a second-hand espresso machine. Tested recipes in his kitchen. Took weekend barista classes. Even ran a blog reviewing local cafes across Atlanta, under the alias Poor Justice. But dreams don't pay rent and Desmond still had bills. So here he sat, day after day, logging property returns and asset forecasts for a man who didn't know the difference between a cortado and a cappuccino. At 9:16 a.m., a bellow rocked through the open floor. Arnett. Heads turned. Fingers paused over keyboards. Desmond closed the file on his desktop and stood. "Yes, Mr. Keenan?" "In my office." Desmond followed him past the glass doors that bore Keenan's name and into the corner office where success was carved in oak and leather. Keenan stood behind his desk, sipping from a mug that read World's #1 Closer. "You file this quarterly return report?" "Yes, sir. Yesterday." "Thought so," Keenan grunted, tossing the printed spreadsheet on the desk. "There's a mistake in column F. Looks like a decimal's off. This your idea of accuracy?" Desmond leaned over and glanced. It wasn't his mistake. That file had been handed off to Gerald from accounting for formatting. But he knew better than to point fingers. "My apologies. I'll fix it right away." Keenan stared at him, expression unreadable. Then, with a grin just shy of mocking, he asked, "Remind me again, Desmond, how long you been with us now?" 11 years last March." 11 years, Keenan repeated slowly as if marveling. "And you're still running reports? Still sitting in that same cubicle? I gotta ask, don't you ever want to do more?" Desmond opened his mouth, but Keenan kept going. "I mean, what's the dream here? You hoping I'll make you partner one day?" He laughed, full-bodied, cutting. "Or are you just marking time, till retirement?" Desmond's jaw twitched. He hesitated, then said, "Actually, I've been saving to open my own coffee house." The silence that followed was almost impressive. Keenan blinked, then leaned back in his chair and roared, "Coffee? You?" Desmond didn't move. "You serious?" Keenan wheezed between laughs. "You want to quit finance and serve lattes?" Desmond stood straighter. "Not just serve. Create. Build a space. A brand. I've been working on it for years." "Oh man," Keenan said, wiping his eyes. "This is rich. You think pouring beans and steaming milk is gonna get you where I am?" "I'm not trying to get where you are," Desmond said quietly. "I'm trying to get where I belong." Keenan paused, the humor flickering out just a little. "Here's a little advice, Arnett. People like you, background, education, all that, you find a seat at a table like this, you don't walk away from it chasing fairy dust. Stick to what's real." Desmond nodded once. Thanks for the advice. He turned and walked out. That day, Desmond ate lunch alone outside on the steps. He bit into a turkey sandwich, but it tasted dry. Not from the bread, but from the lump growing in his throat. But that night, when he got home to his one-bedroom apartment, Desmond didn't sulk. He didn't curse Keenan's name. He went straight to his closet, pulled out the box labeled M&M Plan and opened his laptop. The layoff list. As layoffs loom, Desmond is caught between job security and chasing his dream, until someone he least expects forces his hand. The chill in the air wasn't from the AC. Everyone in the office could feel it, that tension, invisible but humming like an exposed wire. It started when whispers began to ripple through the hallways. Phrases like downsizing and restructure floated in the air like pollen, annoying, inescapable, and allergic to optimism. Desmond noticed it first in the way people hovered around the printer longer than necessary, speaking in low voices. The executive suite doors were more closed than usual, and the HR department, usually sluggish and indifferent, was suddenly buzzing with too much activity. At 10:37 a.m. on a Wednesday, the email dropped. Subject: Company Realignment Announcement. From Miles Keenan. To all staff. In light of evolving market conditions and to align with our long-term growth strategy, Keenan and Blair Holdings will be undergoing a strategic realignment, effective this quarter. Unfortunately, this will include a reduction in workforce. Impacted employees will be notified directly. We thank everyone for their continued dedication to the firm. That was all. No names. No details. Just a corporate eulogy with none of the emotion. Desmond sat at his desk, staring at the email, then at his screensaver, the cafe logo flickering softly like a heartbeat. Mug-in method. He had a folder on his desktop, tucked behind finance spreadsheets, labeled Drafts and Dreams. Inside it were pitch decks, profit projections, interior layout ideas, and even playlists for different times of the day. Morning hustle. Midday mellow. Evening sip sessions. He built the concept like a second job but never dared to leap. Until now. 2 days later, rumors began swirling about a list. An unofficial roster of names being reviewed for layoffs. The anxiety was palpable. Desmond wasn't the only one who noticed folks walking slower past HR, or holding whispered meetings in stairwells. But then came something Desmond hadn't expected. "Hey," Mallory whispered, glancing over her shoulder. "I probably shouldn't be telling you this." Desmond looked up from his keyboard. "But I overheard Miles talking to Carol. Your name came up." Desmond blinked. "What?" "I think you're on the list." A strange mix of emotions swirled in his chest. Fear, sure. But something else too. Something dangerously close to relief. He thanked Mallory, stood up, and headed toward the rooftop terrace. The one place where no one else ever went during work hours. He needed air. The city sprawled beneath him. Atlanta's pulse was steady, unaware that Desmond's was racing. He leaned over the railing. "Layoffs," he muttered. "After 11 years. That's business," came a voice behind him. Desmond turned. Gerald, mid-level finance manager, always in checkered shirts and smelling faintly of aftershave and curry, was lighting a cigarette. "You heard?" Gerald nodded. "Word gets around. I saw the shortlist on Carol's desk. You're on it?" Desmond sat on the bench nearby. "I shouldn't be surprised." Gerald shrugged. "You've been too quiet, man. Never made waves. That's not how you survive here. I always thought being good at your job was enough." Gerald gave a wry laugh. "You still believe that?" Desmond looked away. After a moment, Gerald added, "I heard about your cafe thing. That's still happening?" Desmond hesitated. "I was waiting for the right time." Gerald raised an eyebrow. "This ain't the wrong time." That night, Desmond visited his mother's apartment in East Point. She greeted him in her house slippers and robe, carrying the same grace she'd always had, even though arthritis had started to slow her steps. She poured him sweet tea and listened quietly as he laid it all out. The layoffs, the years of stalled promotions, the dream he'd nurtured in silence. When he was done, she just looked at him. "Baby," she said softly, "I remember when you were 9 selling lemonade out front with a sign that said fresh like Fridays. You were never meant to sit behind a desk and die a little every day. I needed stability. And now stability's packing its bags. What's left?" Desmond nodded slowly. "You've been preparing for this dream like it's a maybe," she said. "Maybe it's time you treat it like it's a must." On Monday, Desmond was summoned again. Mr. Keenan sat with Carol from HR and a large brown envelope on the desk between them. Carol looked apologetic. Keenan looked indifferent. "Desmond," Keenan said flatly, Your role is being phased out. Desmond said nothing. No anger. No protest. Just quiet resignation. There will be a severance package, Carol added gently. 2 months' pay and outplacement services. Keenan, sipping his usual coffee, said, sometimes doors close for a reason. Maybe now you'll finally give that little coffee fantasy a go. He chuckled like it was a joke. But Desmond didn't laugh. He stood. You laughed at me once before, Desmond said calmly. And now you're giving me the push I needed. So thank you, Mr. Keenan. Keenan blinked. Desmond walked out, envelope in hand, tie loosened, heart beating louder than it had in years. The next few weeks were a blur. Paperwork. Permits. A loan approval that came through just in time, thanks to a pitch he had polished during late nights in his cubicle. A small storefront on Edgewood became available. The rent was steep but manageable. Desmond signed. He painted the walls himself. Refinished the counters. Created the menu. Hired a young staff who believed in the vision. Bought second-hand furniture, sanded it, repainted. The soft launch was simple. Friends and family, local artists, a DJ spinning soul vinyl. The reviews began trickling in. A blogger called it the warmest vibe in the city. An influencer with 80K followers posted about the lavender honey latte and tagged it Mug and Method ATL. Business was slow at first, then steady. The sharp click of designer heels echoed across the marble floor of 12 Stone Plaza. It was 7:45 a.m. and Miles Keenan, now partially gray at the temples but still prideful in a charcoal suit, was rushing to make a breakfast meeting with new investors. He needed coffee. And he refused to go to the Starbucks on the corner. Where's that new place everyone keeps talking about? He muttered to his assistant. She glanced at her phone. Mug and Method. It's got insane reviews. 2 blocks down. Quiet, upscale. They say it's got a philosophy. Keenan scoffed but followed her lead. When they stepped inside, the smell hit him first. Warm cinnamon. Espresso. Wood. Vinyl spinning Miles Davis in the corner. It was beautiful. Cozy. Intentional. And at the register, taking an order with ease and grace, stood a man in a crisp apron with the same confident posture Keenan remembered. Desmond Arnett. Keenan froze. Desmond looked up. Their eyes locked. And Desmond smiled. Not with bitterness. With peace. The interview request. When Desmond's story catches the attention of a popular business magazine, Keenan sees an unexpected opportunity, and Desmond faces a dilemma that will test everything he's built. The bell above the cafe door jingled softly as a photographer adjusted her tripod, searching for the perfect lighting. A writer from Southern Rise, a business and culture magazine with a growing national audience, sat cross-legged in one of the cafe's hand-sanded chairs, notepad in hand, sipping an oat milk cordial. Desmond Arnett stood by the main window, watching the morning sun slant across the polished counters and muraled walls. The mural, designed by a local artist, showed hands pouring coffee from a kettle into mugs shaped like hearts. Underneath it in script, brew boldly, live kindly. The cafe was full but never loud. Jazz flowed through the speakers like conversation. Locals sat with laptops, poets scribbled in journals, a young woman softly practiced a monologue under her breath while nursing a tea. It had been 4 years since Desmond walked out of Keenan and Blair with a severance envelope and a vision in his pocket. And now Mug and Method was a staple of Atlanta's East Side Renaissance. So, said Harper Locke, the journalist from Southern Rise, you really used your severance check to start all this? Desmond smiled. That and about 10 years of late nights, saved paychecks, and dreaming bigger than I was allowed. Harper grinned. That quote's going in the headline. She flipped a page. I read about your blog, Poor Justice. You were reviewing cafes years before you opened this place. I find that poetic. I was learning, studying. Coffee is craft. Business is strategy. But community is soul. And that's your secret? No secret, Desmond replied. Just finally having the freedom to do what I was meant to. Harper nodded, impressed. We're going to title this feature, From Cubicle to Cappuccino, The Man Who Built a Movement. You good with that? Desmond laughed. It's a little dramatic, but sure. Why not? Just wait till you see what happens after the piece drops. The glossy printed copy of Southern Rise landed on Miles Keenan's mahogany desk with a thud. He barely looked up from his laptop until his assistant, Jules, tapped the cover. You might want to read this. He glanced down. There it was. A full-page image of Desmond standing in front of his cafe, arms folded, smiling confidently. Keenan's eyes narrowed at the title. From Cubicle to Cappuccino, The Man Who Built a Movement. He flipped through the pages with increasing tension, reading how Desmond took a layoff as fuel for reinvention. How Mug and Method now sponsored local art shows, poetry slams, youth workshops. The article called him a visionary of modern urban gathering spaces. Keenan's mouth was dry. "Isn't that the guy we laid off years ago?" Jules asked. Keenan didn't answer. His phone buzzed with a text from a client. "Did you see this? You knew this guy? Impressive. Remind me to stop by his shop next time I'm in town." Keenan's face darkened. He slammed the magazine shut. That same evening, as Desmond was tallying receipts and reviewing inventory orders, his cafe manager, a bright, quick-thinking woman named Tasha, called out, "D, you've got a message you might want to see." He walked over. "It's from someone named Keenan. Miles Keenan." Desmond stared at the screen. Subject: potential collaboration opportunity. From Keenan at candholdings.com to Desmond at mugenmethod.com. Desmond. Read the piece in Southern Rise. Congratulations on your success. Would love to discuss ways our firm might support or invest in your continued growth. Let's connect. Miles Keenan. Managing Partner, Keenan and Blair Holdings. Desmond read it 3 times. Tasha gave him a look. "You know him?" "I used to work for him." "You serious? The same Keenan you mentioned in your blog that one time?" Desmond nodded. Slowly. "He laughed at my dream. Literally. In his office." Tasha tilted her head. "Well, looks like he ain't laughing now." That night, Desmond sat at his kitchen table, laptop open, the email still glowing on the screen. His mother, visiting for dinner, set down 2 mugs of tea and slid into the seat across from him. "You look like someone asked you to buy your own dream back." Desmond exhaled. "He wants to discuss ways to invest. Says he sees potential now." His mother stirred her tea without a word. "You think I should respond?" "Depends," she said. "You looking to build or prove a point?" He rubbed his temple. "What if I did both?" She raised an eyebrow. "Just remember, baby. A person who couldn't see your worth until everyone else did, ain't the one you need leading your next chapter." Desmond nodded slowly. "But what if he could open doors I can't?" "Maybe. Or maybe you're the door now." 2 days later, against his better judgment, or perhaps because he needed to face it, Desmond agreed to meet with Keenan. They chose a neutral spot, a rooftop bistro in Midtown. When Desmond arrived, he was no longer the quiet man in a coffee-stained tie. He wore a tailored navy blazer over a rust-colored Henley. His beard was shaped, his confidence sharper than ever. Keenan stood to greet him. "Desmond. Good to see you." Desmond sat across from him without offering a hand. "So, you read the article?" Keenan chuckled, folding his napkin. "I did. Quite the read. You've built something real." "I always had the blueprint," Desmond replied. "You just didn't look close enough." Keenan offered a diplomatic smile. "Look, we've got an investment wing now, early-stage brands, community ventures. Mug and Method aligns perfectly. We'd like to explore a stake." Desmond narrowed his eyes. "You want to buy into what you once laughed at?" Keenan paused. "I misjudged you. Happens to the best of us." "No," Desmond said firmly. "Happens to the comfortable. The powerful. You didn't misjudge me. You dismissed me." Keenan's jaw tensed. "That's not how I recall it." "I do." The air between them crackled. But Desmond wasn't angry. He was clear. "You're not the only one who's offered to invest," he said. "There are 4 VCs, a black-owned growth fund out of DC, and 2 tech founders who've already expressed interest. But you're the only one who ever tried to dim me first." Keenan leaned forward. "Desmond, business is business. Let's not make it personal." "It was personal when you laughed," Desmond said quietly. "It was personal when you showed me what you thought my limit was." Keenan sat back, unsure what to say. Desmond stood. "I built this without you. I'll keep building without you." He dropped the magazine issue on the table. "But thanks for the free press." As Desmond's cafe expands, he's invited to speak on a national stage, but one unexpected person is in the audience, and what happens next changes everything. Desmond Arnett adjusted his lapel mic as the stage lights dimmed and the buzz of the crowd quieted into eager anticipation. Behind him, a large screen displayed his name beneath the bold banner. The future of black-owned business, community, creativity, and coffee. He wasn't just the owner of a popular cafe anymore. He was a voice. The annual Black Legacy Business Forum had invited him to be one of 3 keynote speakers. The crowd was packed with aspiring entrepreneurs, students from HBCUs, angel investors, tech founders, cultural commentators and media outlets. Desmond stood at the podium. For a moment, he let the silence speak. Then he began. They laughed at my dream. Told me it wasn't real. That it wasn't big enough, bold enough, or profitable enough. But here's what they didn't know. I wasn't building for them. I was building for us. And what started with a single espresso machine in my kitchen became a haven. A home. A heartbeat in my community. Don't let their laughter become your ceiling. Let it become your fuel. The audience erupted. Cheers, claps, nods of understanding. But Desmond's eyes landed near the back of the auditorium, on a figure he never expected to see. Miles Keenan. Seated, expression unreadable, alone. Desmond continued with practiced calm. But his mind raced. After the event, Desmond was surrounded by a line of well-wishers, young dreamers, small business owners, even a few celebrities. His words had landed. Photos were taken. Numbers exchanged. Deals floated. But just as the crowd began to thin, Miles Keenan approached. "Mind if I walk with you?" he asked quietly. Desmond considered it, then nodded. They exited the auditorium into the Atlanta dusk. Neon signs glowed against the city skyline. Traffic hummed below. "You came," Desmond said without looking at him. "I needed to hear it," Keenan replied. Desmond stopped. "Why?" "Because I think I finally understand." Desmond crossed his arms. "Understand what?" "That dreams don't need your validation?" "No," Keenan said. "That leadership isn't about control. It's about belief. I never believed in you, and that was my failure, not yours." Desmond let the silence hang. Keenan added, "I didn't come here to pitch, or invest, or partner. I just came to say, I'm sorry." Desmond blinked. The sincerity in Keenan's voice was real. But still, apologies didn't erase impact. "I appreciate that," Desmond said. "But I don't need it. What I need is to keep building." Keenan nodded. "I see that now." Weeks passed. The keynote speech went viral. Desmond's inbox overflowed with inquiries, media appearances, investment proposals, franchise opportunities. One message, however, stood out. It was from the Atlanta Heritage Bank. "We're looking to fund a flagship black-owned business in the historic Auburn Avenue corridor. You're top of our list. Let's talk." Desmond was stunned. Auburn Avenue wasn't just any neighborhood, it was sacred ground. Once known as Sweet Auburn, it was the cradle of black economic success, home to legends like John Wesley Dobbs and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. To plant Mug and Method there would mean legacy. But it would also mean risk. The rent was sky-high. The building needed major renovation. Foot traffic wasn't consistent. Tasha and the team had their doubts. "You'd be moving into a historic district with all eyes on you," she warned. "You sure you want that kind of pressure?" Desmond smiled faintly. "I don't just want it. I've prepared for it." A month later, Desmond signed the lease. The building was a 2-story brick structure with arched windows and history etched into every corner. Graffiti had faded over time, bricks chipped, roof leaks patched with old tarp. But Desmond saw potential. He hired local contractors, artists, and architects. Made sure the money flowed back into the community. He commissioned murals from young black artists, built a performance stage for youth events, and carved out space for a business incubator wall, where startups could advertise their services for free. They worked tirelessly. Day and night, through sweat and stress and city permit delays. His mother came by with warm meals. Tasha managed the original location. The team grew. Investors followed, but Desmond was choosy. He said no more than yes. He wasn't building for speed. He was building for soul. Back in the boardroom of Keenan and Blair, things weren't as smooth. The firm had lost 2 major clients to firms that prioritized diverse community partnerships. An internal survey revealed low morale. Younger employees were leaving. And one name kept coming up in conversations about new models of leadership: Desmond Arnett. Keenan stared out his office window one late evening, nursing a cold coffee. He'd spent years climbing ladders, closing deals, building numbers. But what had he built, really? A culture that was crumbling. He sighed. For the first time in decades, he wasn't sure what came next. The big day arrived. Mug and Method's Auburn Avenue flagship was ready. Locals lined up before sunrise. A drumline from a local high school kicked off the ceremony. A spoken-word poet performed a powerful piece about dreams that brew in silence until they pour into the streets. Desmond stood on stage with his mother, Tasha, and the entire team behind him. He cut the ribbon. And the crowd roared. Media covered the event. Influencers posted non-stop. The mayor even stopped by and called it a triumph for the city. Desmond looked around, eyes shining. The floor-to-ceiling windows gleamed. Inside, every table was full. Conversations flowed over cups of Ethiopian roast and sweet cream biscuits. And near the back, just as before, sat Miles Keenan. But this time he wasn't alone. He had a legal pad, a pen, and no entourage. And he was listening. Keenan reaches out again, not as an investor but as a man seeking mentorship. Desmond must decide whether to extend grace or guard his ground. A deep decision looms. Would you like me to continue with part 5? You said. The cafe had only been open for 3 days, but it already buzzed like a well-loved fixture. Desmond arrived early, before the first light hit the streets, before the roasters kicked in and the playlist began. He liked those sacred, still moments, when the cafe was quiet and his thoughts had space. But that morning, an envelope waited on his desk inside the back office. Unmarked. No stamp. Hand-delivered. He opened it slowly. Inside was a handwritten note on thick ivory cardstock. Desmond. I've spent a lifetime at the top, but only recently realized I never looked back to see who I ignored on the way up. You were one of the most overlooked, and one of the most capable. I no longer wish to invest. I wish to learn. I'm stepping down as managing partner this quarter. I've realized there's more to business than expansion. If you're willing, I'd like to meet. Not as a mentor, but as someone hoping to become a student. Miles Keenan. Desmond stared at the note for a long while. He folded it carefully and slipped it into the small wooden drawer beside the register. The one labeled lessons. Tasha found out before he could tell her. She cornered him behind the bar after the midday rush. You seriously considering mentoring Miles Keenan? She asked, arms crossed, eyes sharp. Desmond shrugged. He asked, that's all. Des, come on. The same man who cut you down in front of everyone? Who laughed at your dreams like they were comedy scripts? Desmond didn't answer right away. Look, she continued, softer now, I get that you're growing, and you've always been about grace. But this man's not a kid trying to get his start. He's Keenan. What's he really after? Desmond met her gaze. Maybe redemption. Maybe relevance. Maybe nothing at all. Tasha sighed. Don't let him use your shine to clean up his own rust. He smiled faintly. I won't. They met 1 week later in the upstairs reading loft of the Auburn location. No cameras. No journalists. Just 2 men and 2 mugs of black coffee. Desmond sipped first. Let Keenan speak. I've always been a closer, Keenan began. Every deal, every room, I knew what to say, how to say it. But lately I walk into rooms and I don't feel heard. Desmond nodded. I see my firm struggling to connect with younger talent, diverse founders. I built an empire on exclusion and called it excellence. You didn't build alone, Desmond said. You had a system. Keenan looked at him. Exactly. A system that kept certain voices out. Yours. And now I'm out of step. He leaned forward. I'm not asking for pity. I'm asking for perspective. Let me shadow you. Learn how you build community. How you lead with meaning. I've got decades of experience in capital, but none in culture. Desmond studied him. This wasn't the same man who once laughed at him from behind a mahogany desk. There was something cracked open now. Not broken, just finally honest. I'll let you observe, Desmond said. Not mentor. Observe. Keenan nodded. Fair. But understand this, you're not coming here to fix us. You're coming here to unlearn what broke you. Keenan smiled faintly. That's exactly what I want. Desmond extended a hand. This time Keenan took it. Firm, quiet. No bravado. Just respect. Over the next few months, Keenan showed up 3 days a week. No suit. No title. Just Miles. He swept floors. Sat in staff meetings. Served samples at open mic nights. Took notes during team strategy sessions. Sometimes he'd ask questions. Often he didn't. One day he watched Desmond sit with a young man in foster care who came every Thursday just to be around positive energy. Desmond gave him free hot cocoa and asked about his drawings. Keenan quietly teared up. He'd never seen business done that way. Word began spreading that Miles Keenan had disappeared from the corporate circuit. No one had seen him at galas or real estate expos. Former colleagues speculated wildly. But Desmond knew the truth. Keenan had started tutoring underserved teens in finance through Mug and Method's Dream Back program, an initiative Desmond launched after the Auburn grand opening. The man who once laughed at a barista dream was now teaching middle schoolers how to build equity. One afternoon, Keenan stayed late helping clean up after a youth event. He turned to Desmond and said, You ever think about what your life would have been like if I had promoted you instead of letting you go? Desmond paused, then smiled. No. Because I'd probably still be miserable in that cubicle. They both laughed. Real laughter this time. Weeks later, Desmond received a letter from the National Urban Business Council. He had been nominated for Innovator of the Year. There was to be a gala. Cameras. Press. National eyes. Desmond invited Tasha, his mother, and his core staff. He also extended one more invitation. To Miles. At the gala, Desmond faces a national audience and makes one final statement that surprises everyone, including Keenan. The story comes full circle with grace, impact, and clarity. The ballroom shimmered. Gold uplights bathed the walls in soft glow. Silver linens, champagne flutes, slow jazz humming in the background. The National Urban Business Council spared no detail for its Innovator of the Year gala. Desmond Arnett stood backstage, a crimson handkerchief tucked into his tailored black tux. He scanned the room through a side curtain. Industry giants, former college professors, cultural tastemakers, journalists with notepads, cameras waiting. And at a small table near the front, his mother, glowing in a silver shawl, Tasha beaming beside her, and Miles Keenan, seated humbly at the edge, clapping for every honoree before Desmond's name had even been called. He never expected his life to lead here. He never imagined a dream so small once. A café, a corner, a place to breathe, could grow so wide that it carried others with it. A presenter took the stage. Our next honoree is a man who took dismissal and turned it into direction, who transformed coffee into a conversation, who built not just a business but a movement. Please welcome the founder of Mug and Method, Mr. Desmond Arnett. Thunderous applause. Desmond walked out to the podium slowly, deliberately. He exhaled, smiled, and began. When I was let go from a corporate job 4 years ago, the first thing they handed me was an envelope. Severance. A pat on the back. A nod to the door. But what they didn't know was, I'd already been building something. Quietly. Patiently. For years. They saw an employee. But I was an architect. I just needed the blueprint to live outside my head. Mug and Method started as a whisper. A blog. A second-hand espresso machine. And a belief that our people deserve beautiful spaces too. Spaces that see us. Celebrate us. Challenge us. And today, that dream employs over 30 people, mentors dozens more, and stands on Auburn Avenue as a tribute to what happens when we believe anyway. The room erupted in applause. Some rose to their feet. But Desmond wasn't finished. He held up his hand. Tonight, I want to break tradition. I want to dedicate this award, not just to the believers, but to the doubters. Because they're part of the journey too. One man laughed at my dream once, right to my face. And years later, that same man asked to learn from me. And I let him. Not because I forgot, but because I remembered what it felt like to be unseen, and I refused to replicate it. We don't rise by repeating what held us down. We rise by redefining it. Silence fell. A silence that wasn't awkward, but odd. Miles Keenan stared up at him, eyes glassy. He wasn't used to being addressed in rooms like this, as a lesson, not a leader. And yet he felt no shame. Only growth. After the ceremony, flutes were passed. Music swelled. Desmond stood at the center of a small circle. His mother, Tasha, his staff, and Keenan. Desmond raised his glass. To every closed door that pushed me to find my own. Glasses clinked. Then he turned to Miles. And to those who are willing to unlearn. Keenan raised his own glass, humbled. To learning, late but with heart. Laughter, cheers, warmth. Mug and Method expanded. 2 more locations, one in DC, one in Charlotte. Each cafe kept its soul. Local art. Community partnerships. Live events. Youth programs. Desmond never lost his footing, because he never let the dream outgrow the purpose. Miles Keenan became a board member of the Dreamback Foundation, quietly funding scholarships for underrepresented students in business. He rarely spoke at events. He listened more than he talked now. One afternoon, Desmond walked into the Auburn Avenue Cafe. A teenage boy, backpack slung over one shoulder, was sketching a logo idea in a notebook, sipping cocoa. Desmond smiled. You design. The boy looked up, nervous. Trying to. I want to start my own thing one day. Desmond knelt beside him. What's the dream? The boy shrugged. People say it's dumb. But I want to open a plant store. Like all plants. Air purifying ones. Healing spaces. It's corny, I know. Desmond shook his head. Not corny. Courageous. He pointed to the boy's sketch pad. Let's make it sharper. They bent over the page together. Just like that, another dream was seen. If you like this story, subscribe, share and tell us what you think.